back to Blue Jays today, where today, everybody, we got to figure out what is going on with Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s arbitration. There's an arbitration hearing tomorrow, and we're going to talk about what does this mean? I mean, hey, can we get a deal before then? Are we going to go into the hearings? Is that going to be some sort of drama between the Blue Jays management and Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? And as well, kind of putting a little bit of a nail in the coffin to the Blue Jays offseason as well, and giving our gradings as well as hearing your guys' thoughts as well. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Paleolog. And I mean, a nail in the coffin does kind of seem fitting. We asked you guys what it was that you were thinking for this offseason. I'm seeing a whole lot of F's minus, if that's ever been a thing. Just fail so horribly bad. We are going to touch on that. We're going to give our grading of this offseason because it was revealed that Blue Jays could probably gonna be done. No more moves, maybe. Because literally we have no idea what the hell Ross Atkins is gonna do ever. But it's starting to look like this could be the end for the Toronto Blue Jays. Before we get into it, folks, please make sure to like, subscribe, comment your thoughts down below. Let's talk Vladdy Daddy, though, man. Let's talk Guerrero. A few weeks back, we heard that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was the only player that did not come to terms with what his arbitration was going to be. They could not come to an agreement. Now, we waited, silent for a little while, but now we are at that first initial hearing with Guerrero, where they're going to have to go in, they're going to have to talk with an arbitrator, yeah. And they're going to need to come to a decision as to what it is that he is worth. And for those people who are wondering what the numbers are again, I believe that the Toronto Blue Jays, they were sitting at $18.05 million, and Guerrero was at $19.9 million. So, I mean, when you look at it like that, it doesn't seem like a whole lot, but at the end of the day, we are talking about almost $2 whole million right there. Like, that is literally more money than I've ever made in my entire life. So it is a significant sum. What are your thoughts on Guerrero and the hearing going down tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, for the hearing for tomorrow, guys, essentially they're going to go and try to come to some sort of agreement. And the whole arbitration part where they actually bring in like a third party, that won't happen until a little bit later down the line. If they do continue to disagree, then they're going to have to bring in a third party. So,
right. Excuse me.
That's
guys.
all good. Just wanted to clarify, because essentially what that means is you're basically going to be sitting in the room with your representation as Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and you're going to be sitting there with Ross Atkins and, Blue Jays front office people, and they're going to basically be saying to Vladdy and his team why you deserve less money than what you're asking for. Imagine going into a job meeting and you put up some pretty good years. You've been with the company for, you've been playing for 5 years. You've been playing for 5 years for this company, right? And then to have them say, well, actually, you're just not that good enough. Even though we can all say on paper, Vladdy maybe shouldn't be making that much money based on what he's been doing the last couple of years. It just doesn't feel good as an employer, from an employee standpoint, if your employer is telling you that you don't deserve money.
Well,
you know what I mean?
It's one of those things, right, where when we are doing, or when they're doing press conference, like Blue Jays, and people are talking about Guerrero, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, John Schneider, they got your back. They're in there and they're defending the hell out of you. But then the second that it comes to money, it's like, oh, well, you grounded into a whole bunch of double plays.
Right.
There was a whole lot of problems with your defense last year, and it just feels extremely insincere. So I completely understand why, as a player, walking in, this kind of sucks, man, because, they're going to have to tear you a new one based on what it was that you did last year, and you kind of just need to take it and argue as to why you deserve more money. And I will cite Corbin Burns and his whole situation from either last year or a few years ago.
Yeah.
Last year, he goes into his arbitration meetings. Brewers, they don't want to pay him as much. They effectively blame this dude for why they weren't going deep in the playoffs, for why they were not winning games. They were pinning it on him. And I mean, Corbin Burns is one of the best pitchers in the entire league. He doesn't play on their team anymore, right? So I'm not saying that it was all because of that meeting, but I would argue that might have been one of those first moments where the relationship started to fracture, and that's not a situation that I personally want the Toronto Blue Jays to be in when it comes to Vladimir Guerrero Jr.
I agree. You don't want to fracture that cornerstone star player. As much as we like to get on him saying he needs to be better and blah, 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 and don't hit so many ground balls, hit more home runs, he is a star player and a cornerstone of this franchise. So how do you avoid that? Well, one of the things to avoid that, we've seen Ross Atkins and their management do a very good job, mind you, at doing this, is not letting their star players get into those arbitration hearings. They usually will make a deal with their star players in the past to try to bridge the gap between the now and the end of their contracts with the Toronto Blue Jays. For example, Josh Donaldson, he got a 2-year deal after 2015 to the end of his arbitration years. Bo Bichette, he did the same thing last year. He got a 3-year deal to the end of his arbitration hearing. So I think what you're going to see is probably something very similar with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Would I like an extension? I mean, we saw Bobby Witt get a hell of an extension today.
Paid, dude.
He got paid.
Quick shout out to Bobby Witt Jr. there for absolutely getting the bag, man. Like, I'll be honest, as a Toronto Blue Jays fan, kind of jealous watching them literally lock down their star player for time. On the other flip side of things, not super jealous that Bobby Witt Jr. got paid almost $300 million. I would imagine that Bo Bichette is probably going to be in that range of things as well. I mean, that is a conversation that they will have at a later date.
I mean, Bobby Witt, just on a total side note, he stole 46 bags last year, 30 home runs.
Bags,
and he's done that at age 23, so it's like, I'd shell out the money for that guy.
No,
for sure.
I completely agree. But to your point about getting Guerrero kind of locked down on this deal that's set, you don't have to deal with the arbitrations anymore. I mean, I think that that's kind of the happy medium here. Obviously, I think that I would prefer to have him locked down for more time because that just extends the window.
Yeah.
But it's really difficult right now if you're the Toronto Blue Jays to go in and evaluate this guy's game because you are looking at what he's done in the last 2 years and you are thinking to yourself, okay, I mean, we know that he's our guy. We believe in him. We like the offseason work. But are we willing to really pay him a super long contract? And from Guerrero's standpoint, if he doesn't get that long contract, he's not going to want to sign an extension anyways. So there's not, in my opinion, there's just no way that you're going to get like a 1 or a 2 year deal added on to his arbitration
doesn't make
years.
any sense.
It just doesn't make any sense for anybody. And you also want to avoid, having to go at each other's throats when you're in this hearing. So I completely agree, dude. It just makes the most sense to get him on some locked-in contract for 2 more years.
Yeah, and like speaking of the idea, let's play some hypothetical that the fantasy deal for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I saw some people out there tweeting like, yeah, lock him down for $200 million, 10 years. Okay, done. I'll do it.
Well,
I'll do it, of course.
Sure, yeah.
Like, but he'll never take that money because he wants to prove in the next 2 years that he could do it. Last year, I mean, did you see the article on ESPN after he came out for being the face of the MLB show?
Yeah.
Where he's talking up a whole game
Dude,
and everything, you know what I mean?
Let me just fucking say, man, like, this is the way that I want Guerrero to be speaking.
Yeah.
I do feel like Guerrero and Bo Bichette especially, and I mean, it's all talk. It's all talk right now. We're not seeing them do it yet, but I think that both of them are speaking the way that they should be speaking.
Okay, so here's another thing. I saw some other people saying this. People are actually saying, stop speaking like that, Vladdy. People were telling him not to say all those things rather than, he just say, just go do it. Just go put it up on the field rather than saying it. What do you think about that kind of discussion? Because the whole movie thing and all that and blah, blah, blah.
There is definitely a happy medium between becoming arrogant and then also being confident. And we've talked about this before. I think that I want to see Guerrero and Bo Bichette lead by example and instill these other Toronto Blue Jays players with confidence. Shout out to the person that just subscribed right there. Thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. But I want them to come out and be the leaders of this team and want to play in the Toronto Blue Jays and want to do well. Mm-hmm. I still remember when Bryce Harper came out a few months prior, he was coming back from his injury and he was saying, there is no better place that I want to play rather than Philadelphia. I would die for the city. I'm paraphrasing right now.
Yeah.
But like he came out and he was like absolutely going after why he is going to try his hardest. He's going to do the most for this city. And everybody was looking at Bryce Harper and saying, that's phenomenal, dude. That's a leader right there. Mm-hmm. He's somebody that's leading the team. That's what I want Guerrero and Bo Bichette to become. And I feel like they are starting, still some time, but they're starting to try to take that next step.
And not to discredit Bo Bichette or Vladdy and say that they're not playing for a team. I think Bo Bichette has kind of just like found himself in this leadership role, just by being like one of the better players on the team. But like, just for example, in that ESPN article, like Vladdy is more talking about like his own kind of personal journey. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And like I hear what you're saying, but I almost feel like he was missing. I'm not trying to pick him apart or say he's like, he should be talking about the Blue Jays more, but it does feel like these guys are focused on their kind of personal growth. You know what I mean? A little bit. What do you think?
I don't want to speculate too hard on exactly the nuance to like, well, is he a team player? Is he just, his own self? Like, I do think that they like the Toronto Blue Jays, and I do think that they want to do well, and I do think that they want this team to do well. And I hope that that's going to translate to both of them playing very well and getting us more wins. I mean, I'm never going to fault a player for talking about his own personal development and how he has had to battle through adversity, right?
Especially someone like Vladdy, who like for the last 2 years, all you've heard is about criticizing his own game.
I mean, like Guerrero, kind of similarly to Manoah in a sense. It was all easy for him for the longest period of time. Not that he didn't have to put in work, but you know, he was just the best at every single level that he came to.
Right.
And he came to the MLB, and he was that, and now he's faced with a lot of resistance, right? It's how you battle back from that, and I do think that he is approaching it, at least in this offseason. Still haven't seen him pick up a bat and start swinging that thing, but at least in this offseason, I'm liking what it is that I'm seeing from the clips in the workout and the gym. And I'm kind of liking what I'm hearing as well.
I mean, just in terms of the whole clips and what you're hearing in the ESPN article to kind of wrap around is, you know, he's basically just focusing on staying healthy, right? Like, whereas everyone's kind of focused on that whole backspin or like, you know, is he hitting more ground balls? Actually hit less ground balls than he did in the year where he was almost MVP. Like, so it's not the ground balls, guys. Shocker. Is it the double plays? Well, he hit less double plays. So, you know, for me, I think it's literally just him staying healthy. And that will translate to everything else in his game. You know, if he stays healthy, he'll hit the ball harder. Stays healthy, he'll have better swings. He'll be in a better position to hit the ball out in front. He'll get his bat there. You know, being unhealthy in your swing, that's a difference maker. It's a game of inches for a reason, right? Yeah. If I'm a little bit behind, I'm not getting my hands fully extended. Well, I'm not going to get the most power out of that ball.
Man, it is such a underrated topic just to talk about health in general because everybody notices when you go to the IL or you know you get put down there for like a long period of time and you have to rehab, you have to do all that. But even just these minor little tweaks, man, like you know, it makes a massive difference. And the guys that are able to make it all the way to September. And, you know, maybe they are just dealing with like a little bruise here, a little bump there, but mainly are feeling good and still energized. Yeah. Those are the dudes who are going to go on a run come October, you know, and you just don't, like when you get there and you're the wheels are falling apart of your team and like your whole body's failing you, it's just that much more difficult. And I fully understand that in 162 games, that is bound to happen to some people.
Well, think about Vladdy and you brought up Manoah. You know, those are two good examples of guys who came up and dominated kind of right away in their careers, different points. And then they kind of been falling off. Manoah very drastically last year. Yeah. But what happened to both of them last year? Apparently Vladdy was unhealthy. Manoah apparently was unhealthy. Yeah. So it's like after pitching in their so many innings and Vladdy playing so many games, this is the most workload they've ever had in their entire lives for baseball. So I think that was their body saying, whoa, we're not used to that. And it's about coming to adjustments. So kind of rounding around all the way back to the arbitration stuff. I think it's going to be an easy 2 year kind of deal.
Okay, but what do you think that he's actively going to get paid for those 2 years?
Honestly,
because a lot of people have been relating him to Pete Alonso, which I know we wanted to talk about.
Right, and Pete Alonso got the $2.5 million, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he got $2.5 million. Or sorry, 20 and a half. Yeah. Excuse me, 20 and a half. $2.5 million. I'm like, quite a steal. But he's also on his last arbitration year. If you also got to expect some sort of like a growth after this year, because he has Vladdy has one more arbitration year. I could see a deal of like $45 million, 2 years, $45 million, 20 this year, 25 after. I don't know. Like I can see something around that. Probably a little bit less. That's just kind of just generic rounded up numbers. Maybe 43, 45. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually pretty reasonable. You know, somewhere in the $20 million to $24 million average annual value for Guerrero, because maybe you only pay him 18.5 or 19 this year, but you're right, there is going to be a significant jump, probably, obviously depending on performance, but even if he does the same thing, you're probably still going to be looking at like 24-25 million next year, and if he really pops off, then maybe even more than that. I mean, I could definitely see a range where it's like $22 million average annual value. You lock him down for these 2 years, then you do not have to deal with this headache next year, and then after you have him on this, that's when you get into the deeper extension talks, assuming he comes out this year and does what it is that he's insinuating he is going to do.
Yeah, and that's going to be a whole other conversation, because if he does do well, and Bo still does well, I mean, that'd be a great year for the Toronto Blue Jays. It's a good problem now we have again, because we're getting into a little bit of a bad problem. Like, who the hell do you extend? Do we extend anybody? Do we rebuild? But if they both do well, now you can start having those conversations where we're going to look at that next window, because you have not only just those two guys, you got a lot of guys leaving the team. A lot of bullpen guys leaving the team. And some pitchers as well in the starting rotation in that year. So it's going to be tough, man.
Yeah, of course it is. And both of them are looking like right now anyways that they're going to be getting well over $200 million. Because even Guerrero's talent right now, I still think that if he was to enter free agency, effectively with what he is doing, just with the potential alone, people are going to pay him.
Oh,
people are going to pay him money.
Yeah.
And Bo Bichette, I mean, is his contract going to look like Bobby Witt Jr.'s? Like, could be. Could be. I mean, he's had, like, what, 4 or 5 years of, like, really good baseball? Could be.
Yeah, I'd say probably, like, less in terms of the total value, like, a total, like, money pool, because Bobby Witt's 23, a little bit younger.
Bo Bichette's going to be, what, 27 when he gets into free agency?
Yeah, 4 more years, so it'd probably be less. And Bobby Witt does, you know, in his second year, if I'm not mistaken, hit 30 home runs, 46 stolen bases. Like, that's
He was very, very
messed
good.
up.
He was very, very good.
You know, so I could definitely see Bo getting, like, 250 at least. That's his floor.
I'd say minimum. I'd say really minimum, folks. But Toronto Blue Jays, they're going to be looking at Guerrero tomorrow. We're kind of hoping that the hearing doesn't even happen, and then they just, like, get a deal done, and it's locked in, and they do not have to do this. Because what I really don't want to see, this is something, like, me personally, I just don't want to start getting, like, the tweets or the social media posts about how it's like, oh, you know, the Blue Jays were arguing that, like, his defense were bad, or can you imagine if you start getting these, like, stupid little Instagram posts where it's like, oh, Guerrero took Blue Jays out of his bio, or
my God.
or Guerrero, you know what I mean? It's like, I feel like that's the level of fucking drama that, like, this could become if it was to continue. I'm just saying, like, we've seen this before with other players. I don't want to get into that situation. I don't think Ross Atkins wants to either. Just pay the guy his money for 2 years, lock it in. You don't have to deal with it anymore.
And I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Now, apparently they haven't even been talking since that last meeting on the 11th, like the deadline.
I don't know if that's a good or a bad
I don't
thing,
know if
honestly,
that's good or bad, bro, because we might be getting to it, guys. So, guys, if you are just tuning into this live stream, 181 of you guys watching, hit that like button, smash the subscribe button, because tomorrow we're going to have some content covering this whole Vladimir Guerrero Jr. stuff.
Yeah, 100%, folks. Also, predict the contract down below, everybody. What would it be that you would pay Guerrero? Let's give a quick shout-out to the sponsor of this video, folks.
Whoa! Time for your daily BetWay Breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on BetWay. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
Shout out to BetWay, everybody. They are absolutely phenomenal, folks. The place to be if you are interested at all in sports betting. Yo, also, quick shout out to Dave right here with just the best comment in the world. I feel like this is the way that we need to describe arbitration from here on out. Arbitration is like divorce. Avoid at all costs. Totally accurate, dude.
That's facts,
totally accurate. You just do not want to have to deal with this. It is going to be a headache. People are going to be pissed off regardless of how it goes down.
That's facts. That's facts. I love it, Dave.
Let's move on to Tony Kemp, dude.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Tony. I can't even believe that we're talking about this right now, but, like, I got the Twitter update that the Toronto Blue Jays were looking at Tony Kemp, everybody. Everybody on Twitter was, like, just freaking, in Blue Jays land, they were just freaking out right now because, if you don't know, Tony Kemp, not the best year last year. -1 WAR.
Dude, he's a career WAR of 3.5.
And he's been in the league for a long time.
This boy's
been around, dude.
bro.
This boy's been around. Also, looking at the positioning, he played almost half of his games last year at second base. Just a position that we just literally do not need, even in the slightest. It feels to me like there are players in our minor league system, our prospects, that are more than capable of doing what it is that Tony Kemp could come up to the Toronto Blue Jays and do. What are your thoughts on Tony Kemp?
All right, here's my thoughts. If you're thinking that Tony Kemp's going to be a big leaguer, you're wrong. It's just never going to happen. Look, we already got IKF. We got a full, just a pool of dudes at the big league level playing in that second base position, so it's just not going to happen. It would, however, be a minor league contract. Now, do I want Tony Kemp up at the big leagues at any point? Probably not. But here's the thing. We got to look at what our minor league system has right now in terms of guys who play that infield position who are expendable. It's Ernie Clement. Love Ernie Clement. He came up and did pretty decent for the Blue Jays last year. But the only problem with Ernie Clement, he has 0 options left. So once you bring this guy in, maybe he starts with a big league club. Once you send him back down to AAA, he's gone. Or he's gone through waivers. Someone might claim him. You might lose him, right? So the only reason why you go get Tony Kemp is to be the next Ernie Clement replacement. Just a guy who can come up, play some infield in the middle of the year when you're hurt.
Effectively just burn all the options. Pay for the options.
Yeah, and it's not even like he's going to start. He'll be off the bench. Like, how many games did Ernie start last year? Maybe 2, 3?
Yeah,
I don't know. Like, he came off the bench a ton, though.
Really not a whole lot. I mean, I think that where people are coming from, though, with Tony Kemp, and you guys let us know in the comments, but I feel like where people are coming from here is just that spot and coming up to the big leagues and maybe getting an opportunity. It just feels like even the 25th ranked Toronto Blue Jays prospect would be more than capable
For
of doing
sure,
it. You know what I mean?
for sure.
And maybe that guy could become the new Ernie Clement. Probably he could.
For sure.
And I think I understand in that regard, because when you're looking at Tony Kemp, if this guy ever does play, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Essentially, it's just the burning of the options, because you could bring up your 25th guy, but maybe you might want to save him for a trade.
Right.
That's the kind of thing. Like, you could turn a 25th ranked prospect into that option burning dude, but then you lost a little bit of value, at least in some sort of trade. You know what I mean?
Well, I like what Jid said right here, saying stay away from anyone on the AAA athletics, dude. That's honestly what it comes down to for me. It's like, I don't know if this is the pool of players that we should necessarily be targeting right now for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, like, the only comparison I could have where Tony Kemp is he's just some toilet paper.
It would just be, oh my God, Jesus Christ. Okay.
Or it's in, it's out, it's gone, bro.
Gone,
we're flushing it down the toilet.
Yeah, apologies to Tony Kemp
Sorry,
and his
bro.
family and any Tony Kemp fans out there.
$1 million toilet paper.
Yeah.
Like, hey, earn that $1 million minor league contract, bro. Like, just get it. Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's the point of the career he's at, right? Like,
it is, though. I do understand what you're saying right now. I get what you're saying, and I mean,
probably not the most prettiest of comparisons.
Well, at the end of the day, I don't really want him on the squad either, man. So, and it just, I think it's frustrating too to a couple Toronto Blue Jays fans, because like this feels like the type of player that we have been looking at all offseason.
Yeah,
right? Like, really, what is the difference between Tony Kemp and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa? There isn't a whole lot.
Only -1 WAR.
There really is not a whole lot between those two guys. So I understand the frustration. I personally don't want anything to do with this dude. I get what you're saying, that maybe he's just going to be an options burner.
Yeah.
But we might not even need to deal with it, folks, because later, right after this was getting talked about, the whole Tony Kemp stuff, Ben Nicholson-Smith came out, and he was discussing the Toronto Blue Jays offseason and where they're at, what they might be doing moving forward. And apparently, he's saying that there is a good chance that the Blue Jays are done making major additions to their roster. This is something that a lot of you guys have been talking about. This is something that we've been talking about, too. It just, it doesn't feel like Jorge Soler or Cody Bellinger or any of those guys are just in the mix anymore after you got Justin Turner.
Yeah.
Because the only way that you'd be getting those dudes is making significant changes through trade to just even find a spot for them. So that feels like a stretch. And then if you're not getting one of those guys, you're going to be looking at somebody like an IKF or a Tony Kemp or something, which also doesn't really make sense, I think. So they might be done.
Yeah, you're not going to get, like I said, you're not going to get any big moves. This is the first time in the offseason where I haven't been hearing a rumor of the Jays connected to Soler or Martinez or any big names. First time.
Let me tell you, it's kind of refreshing.
It is refreshing. I'm cool with the Tony Kemp connection.
Well,
here's the thing. Of the pool of minor league burner contracts, it's Tony Kemp.
Well,
we're connected to him now.
Well, no. People message us all the time. They're saying, guys, we're sick of it. We're tired of these people, these connections to these things. I feel the same fucking way.
Dude, yeah. I hear you.
I am so sick and tired of people, these analysts coming out and saying it's like, oh, the Blue Jays are showing interest in Jorge Soler, or the Blue Jays are showing interest in JD Martinez. Like, don't get me wrong. I like those players. I want them on this team. But by God, I think I'm just ready at this point for the Toronto Blue Jays to lock it in and say, this is our squad. We're going to spring training. We're going to play some baseball. We're going to try to win. We're going to try to win some games.
Essentially, I listened to The Boy Who Cries Wolf the entire time, and The Boy was literally the internet.
Yeah,
it was every analyst ever out there saying, "Oh, the wolf is coming." Well, and I'm like, all right, no wolf's effing coming, bro. Like, come on.
This offseason has been notoriously bad. We've been guilty of it too, but it's like everybody has been saying that somebody is coming somewhere. No one is coming at this point. I'm kind of hoping that that's the case.
Look, from our perspective, we're just hearing what people are saying. We're trying to build connections within this industry, and hopefully one day we can just tell you the facts. Like, what is it that we're hearing directly from the source? But we got what you guys have right now, so we're all kind of in this shit pool together. You know what I mean? Of unknown.
We might not be in it for very much longer if Ben Nicholson-Smith is coming out and stating the facts right now. I do think that there is, like he's saying, a good chance that he's right, folks. Just looking at this squad, really the only addition that makes sense for me, you're not going to bring in a starting pitcher. The lineup feels like it's established unless you're making a big major trade. Maybe you go out and you get a bullpen guy. Maybe you go out and do that. I feel like that's the only thing that you might do.
And I think it's going to be a minor league bullpen guy. A guy that we can burn options with again. Call up and out. Because even that bullpen is still looking pretty solid, right? You got to have a spot for Yariel. Maybe if he ends up being a long roll, or I don't know how they're going to really play him. Probably don't want to do him that way, but I don't know. But yeah, it's some sort of guy to burn through contracts.
One of those
That's
dudes
it.
that you don't even notice until mid-June or something. When
Facts.
somebody gets hurt, you bring him up. You're like, oh, okay, this guy's gonna come in when we're down bad.
Facts. I mean, hell, like the best minor league contract we got was Jay Jackson. You might actually find a diamond in the rough. You know?
Yo, I'm actually genuinely upset that we let that guy walk.
I know. He went to the Giants, right? I think he went to the Giants, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. He signed very recently.
Someone say in the comments down below.
I'm happy that he got paid. I'm happy that he got a new contract.
I love Jay Jackson.
But like that was a dude that like I just wanted to have around.
Oh my god.
Because not only was he really good at baseball when he was with the team, but also he was a fucking Toronto Blue Jay, man.
Dude,
this guy was in the community. He was going on podcasts. He was tweeting at people. He was talking to people.
Twins. Sorry to cut you off. Twins.
Go to the
That's
Twins.
where he went. Oh, Jesus.
How did we let that happen?
Why we let him go to the Twins?
No, that's stupid, dude. That's really stupid. I love Jay Jackson. I wish you all the success, unless it's playoff time and you're playing against the Toronto Blue Jays. But other than that, dude, I wish that you absolutely dominate with those Minnesota Twins.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about it then. We've been kind of waiting for a while right now to talk about what is our off-season kind of grading. I asked you guys on Twitter, if you follow us on Twitter, please do. Check us out. Links in the description. A lot of fun on there. I asked you guys on Twitter, like, what is your off-season gradings? Because essentially we're done. These have been the major moves. Anybody you add after this isn't really going to change or move the needle, I think, in any way. Mm-hmm. So I want to quote Josh Goldberg here, who's basically saying, who is it that we got back in? Turner, IKF, Rodriguez. Then who we got back was Kiermaier, Green. Who left? Chapman, big player right there. Belt, big player. Merrifield, pretty big player for us, honestly. Carried that Blue Jays lineup for like a good 2/3 of the season.
Yeah.
Ryu, great second half addition. Hicks, great trade. And Jay Jackson, the guy we're talking about right here. So those are a lot of big names. And these are the guys we're bringing in. Some people out here were saying, Blue Jays dad were saying F-. Other people who are here have some other stuff. I'll bring it up in a little bit. But I want to get your kind of grading here, Nick. What are you grading?
Go back to Josh Goldberg's thing. Pull that up so everybody can see. Let's go step by step here, okay? Let's really lay it out.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're looking at Turner. You bring Turner in. Turner is, you could argue is the Chapman. You could argue the Belt. Probably the Belt replacement. So when you're looking at Turner, when you're looking at Belt, just based off of last year, it is a slight downgrade. It is a slight downgrade just off of last year when you're looking at a slash. From an RBI standpoint, he really put up. Really put up.
That's another thing. I mean, if we're going to look at it, let's take a little peek, because that's the thing. He's healthy, though. That's the value in Justin Turner. I almost want to say he's almost an upgrade, because
it's arguable.
It is arguable.
Arguable, dude. Brandon Belt had a very good year last year, though.
Yeah, defensively wise, he's basically a non-factor. They had the similar wars, but Turner was on the field for longer.
Yeah.
So honestly, let's go for like an equal. It was kind of equal.
All right, no, that's fine. That's fine. So we can say that those guys are equivalent. I can absolutely see Justin Turner doing exactly what he did last year, or even doing, what Brandon Belt did with his slash. And let's face it, Brandon Belt, he was like a complete negative non-factor in basically the entire month of April. That dude literally, he couldn't see a baseball in the month of April. Then he turned it on. So I could absolutely see Justin Turner being very good all season long. Let's say that they're the same. Okay, so you have the same thing right there.
Cool.
When you look at IKF, that is effectively the Merrifield replacement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Or the Chapman. You could argue which one.
But I feel like you're right. It's Merrifield, the utility guy.
Guy coming in, gonna play all over the place. Maybe play mostly at third base, but could play second. Could play outfield. Could do a bunch of stuff. That to me,
that's a big downgrade.
To me, feels like a bit of a downgrade. I'm not going to lie, folks. A little bit of a downgrade here. Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, 78 OPS plus last year. Merrifield, not his best year.
Yeah.
Not his best year, but still definitely did a little bit more. So let's say that it's a slight downgrade. We're going to be generous here. We're going to say it's a slight downgrade right there from IKF to Whit Merrifield. Now you're looking at Kiermaier. You brought him back. That's good. You brought Green back. That's great. So those guys are the exact same. Ryu, that's kind of the Yariel Rodriguez thing, and I would argue that it's it's not confirmed by any stretch of the imagination, but I would argue that it might be an upgrade.
A slight upgrade, I'd agree.
Coming into this year, because Ryu coming off of injury, he's getting older. Yariel Rodriguez, lots of promise.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like you got him for 4 more years. So it's going to be an upgrade. He's younger. He could get better as his time with the Blue Jays. He can come out of the pen, which Ryu was pretty locked into the starting role. So I like a slight win. So let's say, based on everything we said right now, comparing all these guys, we're about equal. Or about equal?
Yeah,
Right,
about
slight
equal.
down, slight up.
Sure,
Okay, okay.
sure. Jay Jackson, you lose Jay Jackson. That's a little bit of an L.
That's a negative.
That's a little
right
bit
there.
of an L. I mean, you might find somebody in your minor league system already that we just don't know about. We're just not talking about, right? Because you're always finding these guys. Bullpen guys can come out of nowhere. This happens every single year. But Jay Jackson was pretty good at baseball for the Toronto Blue Jays last year. We'll just put it there.
0.8 WAR, and then you've got Hicks. Like now, I'm kind of looking at WAR. Like, how much WAR did we lose?
Hicks
right now?
is definitely a blow.
That's
Hicks
a blow.
is absolutely a blow because he was the guy that when Jordan Romano went down, he's coming in, he's saving the day, right? And he pitched 65.2 innings for the Blue Jays, so that is definitely a L. There is a loss in the bullpen right now.
Bro, Hicks and Jay Jackson are the same WAR last year.
That's crazy.
Put that in perspective.
That's crazy.
I've always viewed Hicks as like better than Jay Jackson.
Yeah.
They were the same.
No, that's
Baseball Reference
absolutely insanity, man. I actually can't believe that, but just goes to show how much of a stud Jay Jackson is. And then, of course, you're losing Matt Chapman.
Yeah.
And there is nobody that is coming in that's even remotely close to bringing that back. So just on a WAR standpoint, 4.4 Matt Chapman, 0.8 from both of the relievers.
Six WAR.
So effectively 6 WAR that you are losing there just in the offseason alone, just on last year. That's it. Just off of last year.
Yeah, that's an L. That's a big L. So that's 6 WAR. So we look at our wins above replacements. What do we get? 89 wins? Now you're at 83. Now you're at 83.
That's not good.
That's not
That's
good.
not playoff.
That's not good.
That's definitely questionable.
Obviously, that's why we're saying so often we got to have these guys step up. They got to step up because they got to get us a few more wins above replacement. So with that being said, let me ask you first, where would be your even? If we went even this offseason, what would you give the Blue Jays grading? If we were even in WAR somehow?
Oh, we stayed the same.
Stayed the exact same.
I feel like, dude, if you stay the same and you don't overexceed, that to me is you got like a B.
You got a B. You did the job.
You did the job. You didn't really excel here, but you did enough that you're giving yourself a chance. Like if I had to put a percentage on it, it feels like a 75%. It's like you did it.
Yep.
If you went out, you overexceeded, you brought in more guys you brought in Cody Bellinger, you got Ohtani. Now it is an A+. Like you're really exceeding. You're bringing more to this team. We didn't do either of those things. We did less than that. I don't think that we absolutely screwed this team. I think that the Toronto Blue Jays did enough to maybe be okay. But realistically, based off of what we just went through, I would say that we probably did a C- or a D+,
Yeah.
Maybe a D+ is what I'm going to go with here.
And you know what? That's exactly what I was going to say, too, is D+. Because I thought of it this way. First of all, let me read all your guys' comments. I'll give it a D because you got Gold Glove, Kiermaier, you brought back inexperienced player Justin Turner and Rodriguez.
Yeah.
C-, D-, C+. Okay, we're kind of floating around the same area. C+, C. Anyone give an F? Yeah, we got a few Fs in it. F+, F, F-, F. Yeah. Okay, I totally get that. For me, an F, when I think about what's my medium, right? My B, which is bringing everybody back. For me, an F is you let everybody go and you added nobody. That's an F, right? Because you literally didn't do anything. Whereas we attempted to replace half of the guys that we got back, but we still lost the biggest player, Matt Chapman. Like that lets, as much as we're like, oh, we got to get or someone different than Matt Chapman, well, that was us assuming we'd get Soto, Ohtani, or Bellinger.
Yeah.
If we didn't get those guys, you got to get Matt Chapman back. You didn't get him. You didn't get Soler. You didn't get one of these kind of big thumpers, other than Justin Turner, who, like we said, is basically what? The replacement of Bell, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, for me, you made a couple moves. You get a D+. You didn't fail, but damn, did I expect a lot more from you, and we got to do a lot better.
I think that it puts it really in perspective when literally just off of last year alone, you lost 6 WAR.
Yeah, you lost 6 WAR.
Like that's a big loss.
That's a big loss.
If we saw that in a graphic, I could imagine the MLB putting out a graphic like that, looking at WAR gained, WAR lost. I mean, you got to imagine that we're going to be in the bottom half for sure.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Seasons.
I'd say so.
That's a lot of WAR to be losing, So you are really banking on some of these other Toronto Blue Jays players really stepping up. I mean, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., what was his thing? What was his WAR last year?
It was like a 4.5.
I thought it was lower than Matt Chapman. But I think that I think that Guerrero, you need him to be a 6-WAR guy.
Yeah.
Like, you need him to really, really do well
Oh, God, it was 2.
Yeah,
it was Brandon Belt.
I thought it was much lower than what you're saying.
Oh, my God.
Like, you're asking for him to be a really special player, 5-WAR, 6-WAR next year. Similarly with some of the other guys, too. Springer's going to need to step up as well. That's how they're going to be gaining back these W's, and that's just to get back to 89 wins.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be a tough season.
It's a tough season, man. Like, for me, and I love when you said this on the last podcast, we just got to, put this whole offseason aside, because that's what this kind of ending of this Blue Jays Today shows. The purpose is we got to put it all behind us, because come season time, we're rooting for the guys to do well, right? Like each individual player, they've got their own story. We got to have them do well, because if they don't, then we're stuck. This was the offseason move. The offseason move was to fill in a couple holes and trust the guys and save some dollars.
Well, and I completely agree with some of these comments too. So somebody just said, guys, sometimes it's worse to let people go and replace them with others who do nothing, which I agree, because we're making this evaluation. This is just off of last year. Nobody's going to do exactly the same that they did last year, right? That just never happens. There's always going to be fluctuations with everything. So I understand what the Jays are doing right now, and they're just saying that this is our core of players, and we are going to ride or we are going to die with those guys. And it's always been that way. We've known that. We talked about that forever, right? When Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Bo Bichette were first coming up, it was, okay, Toronto's got a bright new core, a bright new future. When these guys get good, they're going to be dangerous.
You know what it is? We got selfish. Last few off seasons, we got selfish.
You got greedy.
Greedy. Yes, thank you. You bring in Simeon, you bring in George Springer, then you have Ryu obviously come back too well. You bring in Kevin Gosman, you bring in Chris Bassett, then Kikuchi breaks out, Manoah breaks out. You trade for Barrios, he does well. Like, we got greedy. We were like, let's keep going. But now, not every team can just continue to go sign all these massive players. Hell, even the Dodgers last offseason, they didn't really make many moves.
Yeah.
They were kind of making...
Well, they were planning.
They were planning for the big moves this offseason. So, I think that's what you're seeing for the Blue Jays is there's basically 2 years left of this window. We're not really planning for any sort of massive push here. We've got our team. We did it. We did all the moves leading up to this point. I made a video room on this. Now we just got to play. You bought the pieces. Go play now.
Actually, the Dodgers are kind of a good shout, because I remember last offseason, and this is the LA Dodgers that we're talking about, folks. But I feel like the offseason just always gets blown out of proportion, because people last year coming into the season were looking at the LA Dodgers and thinking, oh, they're not going to be as good as they were before. They didn't make any moves. Like, what's going on with that pitching staff? What's some of those guys are getting a bit older. Those Padres, though, they were making moves. They're going to be filthy. Look what happened, right? The Dodgers are the Dodgers, and they were phenomenal, and now they're going out and they're making moves. So I feel like we need to do the exact same thing where, okay, this is a bit of a quieter offseason right now. Now the guys got to go do it. You go win 94, 95 games. You just give your management the right and the reason to next offseason pop off.
Dude, 2 more examples. Mets is an obvious one. They spent the most money in the world, and we were saying this is unfair, this is not okay. They didn't even make postseason. The Texas Rangers, they did make some pretty big moves last offseason, but what was the conversation? Well, their lineup, it's still weak. They need to go add more guys. Oh, well, their bullpen, it's basically a black hole. They just won the effing World Series. So, looking at that team, I was like, we could be better than that team still. Like, there's no way. Well, they clearly were better than everybody because they won the World Series. So it just goes to show... Time to shut up, everybody. Let's look at this season. Let's look at the spring training, which 10 days away from pitchers and catchers report, everybody. That's going to be exciting. So you're going to see some sort of content shift in this Blue Jays Today community because we're going to be ramping up for the actual season, everybody.
Absolutely, folks. We do have a very big announcement coming shortly, guys, probably in the next few weeks, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, guys, please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, comment your off-season grades down below, everybody. Potential live stream tomorrow, depending on what goes on with Guerrero. Hopefully, we get some news very soon.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching.
And as always,
go Jays, go!